You know, I'm giving you that failure. So let's get a divorce.
What?
A dumb mother and a dumb son. Just perfect, huh? Since you won't agree to a divorce, I'll just leave on my own.
With that, he handed me the divorce papers. Ever since our kids were little, my husband only praised our eldest, John, for his good grades and always put down our second son, Mike. Of course, I didn't want to lose John, but he got into a private high school, and I couldn't afford to send him there on my salary alone. It was an utterly unacceptable situation, but I had no choice but to accept it. And so, life with Mike began.
He's not interested in the mediocre and failures, huh? He actually said that.
It's okay. You have hidden talents. Just you wait and see. I said, raising Mike to be someone to be proud of. Then, 7 years later, a man came to visit me.
It's been a while. 1,000 employees, huh? That's incredible. I had no idea you'd started a business and made it a success.
That's right. But you've got the wrong person to talk to.
Huh?
I'm the CEO, but this company is. I'm a 34-year-old housewife living in New York. I got married 3 years ago and have been a stay-at-home wife since. Rather than being allowed to, it's more accurate to say I became a housewife at my husband's strong insistence. We met at the same workplace, dated for a year, and then decided to get married. Our relationship was well known, and when we announced our marriage, all our colleagues celebrated with us. That's why we discussed our future life in detail. I was thinking of working even after we get married, at least until we have kids. I think it would be troublesome for our colleagues if I just quit suddenly. I plan to keep working for a few years.
No. After we're married, I need you to be a stay-at-home wife. You want to work. Are you trying to embarrass me?
Embarrass you? I'm not intending to. But do I have to be a stay-at-home wife? It's quite normal these days. Many young couples both work, and there are even those who return to work after having kids.
Working even though we're married. It's like saying my earnings are bad. Everyone at work, the neighbors, my friends, they'll all laugh at me. That's out of the question.
Indeed, some people might think that way. But I wished he'd look at the reality rather than what people might think. We don't work for a big corporation, so our salaries aren't that high. We could live on my husband's salary alone if we don't live luxuriously. We talked about wanting kids, and it would be better to have as much savings as possible for the future. I thought my salary could go entirely into savings if we could live on my husband's salary alone. But he prioritized his pride over our life together and refused to live as a dual-income family. But considering the future.
If you really want to work, quit your current job and look for something you can do from home. That way, no one will know you're working.
It's not that easy.
Since we can live on my salary alone, there's no need to be so selfish.
That was true, but I wasn't just talking about the present. Before we got married, he was really kind, and I never thought we'd have such a problem right after getting married. I regret a bit not discussing more about the future before deciding to marry. But it's too late for regrets, and I can't continue working if he's so against it. We weren't in a hurry to have kids anyway, so I decided to take my time looking for a work-from-home job. The financial issue could be resolved little by little. That was my initial thought. Then, about half a year later, I found a work-from-home job, and I've been busy every day, balancing it with housework.
I'm home.
Hi there. Guess what? It looks like I'm pregnant.
Pregnant?
Yes. It means we're going to be a family of 3. I'm so happy. I had wanted to wait a bit longer before getting pregnant, but I was truly happy. I had heard stories from other expectant mothers, so I knew it would be tough going forward. But the joy of finally being pregnant with our long-awaited child was far greater. The first part was tough with morning sickness, but I wasn't too badly affected physically, so I managed to keep up with the housework. My husband was busy with work and seldom helped out or showed much consideration for me, but somehow we managed, so I didn't see it as a huge problem. After our first child was born, life with our adorable baby was truly enjoyable. But at the same time, I personally experienced the difficulties of parenting.
I'm going out for drinks again tonight, so don't bother making dinner. I'm off tomorrow, so I'll probably be back in the morning.
Hey, you've been going out a lot lately. Don't you think you should spend some time with our child? I'm exhausted from the nightly crying. I have to always watch the baby and do the housework. No matter how much time and energy I have, it's not enough. You just do whatever you want. It's unbelievable.
Going out is part of my job. You can't restrict me. Besides, I'm spending my own money, so you shouldn't have any complaints. Parenting is the mother's job, so fulfill your duty.
As a mother, I understand I have a responsibility to raise our child. But that responsibility also lies with my husband, the father. Why should only the mother be responsible for parenting? Both parents have an equal responsibility to raise their child, and having a job isn't an excuse to neglect that. I have housework, but I'm also parenting, so I wish my husband would participate in parenting despite his job. But no matter what I said, my husband continued to act selfishly. This is where our marital troubles began to worsen, and then I found out I was pregnant with our second child. We hadn't been intimate much, so I was very surprised by the pregnancy, but the thought of having another child was a happy one. However, my husband said,
We can't afford to raise a second child. It might be harsh, but wouldn't it be better if it went to heaven?
Wait, are you telling me not to have the baby? Don't joke about this.
It can't be helped. We don't have the time or the resources to raise 2 children. Face reality.
It's our responsibility since we made the child, so we need to take responsibility and raise it no matter what. If you cut down on your hobbies, like cars, going out, fishing, and golf, we could easily find the funds to raise a second child. I yelled at him loudly after this statement. Enough with the jokes. What does he think about our children? I won't allow him to refuse to have our child for selfish reasons. After a big fight with my husband over this, we barely spoke, but I went ahead with the pregnancy against his wishes. The second pregnancy was physically harder than the first, and the days were mentally tough. But seeing my child's face after giving birth made all the hardships disappear. Like with the first, I vowed to raise this child responsibly. As they grew, they quickly became elementary school students.
I'm home, Mom. I'm back.
Hi, both of you. How did you do in school?
No problems at all. I got A's in all subjects.
Well done.
I didn't do so well. I tried, but I'm just not good at studying.
I never intended to compare my children. John has his strengths, and Mike has his. I never wanted to favor one over the other, but academically, John was more gifted. Despite not studying much at home, John's test results were perfect. At parent-teacher conferences, I heard nothing but stories of his excellence. However, despite Mike's efforts, his grades weren't as good. But I saw him working hard on his homework and studies every day, and I wasn't focused solely on the results. Both of you did well. It might not have turned out as hoped, but results aren't everything. Let's try again next term. Though getting straight A's is truly amazing.
It's because you're always so lenient that he doesn't improve. If you can't get good grades, don't you think that's a failure? That's why I said we shouldn't have had him.
Hey, don't say things like that in front of the kids.
But it's the truth, right? John is so smart, but Mike. Maybe it's because he was conceived when our marriage was starting to fail. Maybe he's not even my child. Maybe that's why he's a failure.
Don't joke around. There are things you should and shouldn't say in front of the kids. They might still be young, but they are already elementary school students. They are old enough to understand what their father is saying, and I felt a deep anger towards my husband from the bottom of my heart, but I couldn't let the children see us in a shameful argument any further. I tried to stay calm, but lately, these kinds of remarks have been increasing. My husband judges our children solely based on their results, and Mike has been hurt by his words. Of course, John said he didn't feel good hearing his brother being criticized even though he was praised.
Dad, I just happen to be good at studying. You have to acknowledge his effort.
If the results don't show, then the effort means nothing. At the Olympics, only the gold medalists are praised, but no one values the athletes who trained even harder but didn't win. The world isn't kind, and those who can't produce results are worthless.
I don't think my view is the only correct one. There's room for the kind of result-focused thinking my husband has, and I don't outright reject that perspective. However, I believe it's wrong not to acknowledge their efforts at all. It demotivates the children and diminishes their confidence. Then, even a child who could have been encouraged to try hard might end up not trying at all. To avoid making them feel like their efforts are meaningless, I continued to care for Mike's emotional well-being. However,
You know, I've been thinking of putting that kid into an institution. I don't plan on wasting any more money on someone who can't even bring home decent grades.
what? I was shocked by my husband's son's suggestion, but it seemed he was talking about Mike. Putting him into an institution. What is he thinking? I would never do such a thing. It's true that Mike's grades aren't as good as John's. But there are things you should say and things you shouldn't. Doesn't he understand that as a human being? If there were truly insurmountable reasons we couldn't take care of him, I'd understand. And it's not that I think putting a child in an institution is abandoning them. There are various circumstances where people who want to take care of their children themselves can't. But my husband's reasoning is just selfish and utterly unacceptable. What does he think about his own children? Don't be ridiculous. There are things you shouldn't say.
Am I wrong? It's the fault of those who can achieve results, right? If you're so protective, why don't you take care of him yourself?
How can you say that? Where's your responsibility as a parent?
I'm sick of living with you anyway. Why don't you just take that idiot and raise him yourself?
After saying that, he went back to his room. I was speechless. Even as a joke, that's something you can't say. Ever since before Mike was born, he had been negative about the pregnancy. And after Mike was born, he always compared him to John. The atmosphere at home was truly bad, and since then, we hardly spoke to each other. My husband neglected our family and did whatever he liked, so time passed without any major issues in our household. And before we knew it, John was nearing the age to graduate from middle school. Then, one day,
Hey, sign this.
what? A divorce paper. We hadn't spoken about anything other than necessities, and most of our communication was through text, so I was surprised when he suddenly spoke to me. I was speechless. He wants a divorce. But why now? Certainly, our relationship as a couple had cooled off, and there was no warmth in our family. But until now, he had been doing whatever he wanted, and I had been paying for Mike's tutoring and extracurricular activities with my income from working at home. We had been living without any complaints from each other. What changed for him?
I don't intend to waste any more money, and I don't need failures.
What do you mean?
I have no intention of continuing our married life. I want to remarry with my new girlfriend.
What? I was shocked and wide-eyed at his statement. Unexpectedly, he had been having an affair. Why? I found myself at a loss for words, taking time to sort out my thoughts. However, our marital relationship was virtually non-existent, and the only reason I had continued our marriage was for the sake of our children. If it weren't for them, I would have divorced him immediately. Although I wasn't saddened by the affair itself, I was infuriated by his irresponsibility in crossing an unforgivable line and then wanting a divorce. How dare you be so selfish? What do you think your position is?
It's my life, so I'll do as I please. Plus, I'm leaving the failure with you.
The failure. Could it be that he intends to raise our eldest himself, but expects me to take care of our youngest? They are both middle schoolers. That's not something we can decide without discussing it with them. Surely, he favors our academically gifted eldest. But what does our eldest think of a father who neglects his family for an affair? You would figure that out with a bit of thought. You're trying to make everything go your way, but that's not possible, right? The kids aren't pawns for you to manipulate.
Then let me tell you. Can you support him on your salary alone since he got into a private high school? If you consider his future, my proposal is the best, isn't it? I'll leave the failure with you. So no division of assets, and we'll each raise one kid. Oh, and if you try to claim alimony for the affair, you know what will happen, right? He can't go to that private high school if the money's gone.
His words felt like a threat. Indeed, he wasn't wrong. Our eldest had passed the exams for a prestigious private high school. If we divorced now, who would pay for that education? A person who cheats so easily. If I claimed child support, he could easily cut off contact and leave us in the lurch. I can't trust a cheater. Yet, if I don't agree to the divorce, he'll just leave on his own. After much thought, I had no choice but to believe his method was the best course of action. I'm truly sorry for everything turning out this way. I'm a failure as a parent, but I'll do whatever I can for you, and I'll respect your choices.
All right, then I'll live with Dad until I graduate from high school. I'll keep in touch with you, Mom, so don't worry.
Are you sure about this?
Of course. Well, Dad probably just wants to keep me, the one with good grades, close to him.
My eldest decided to live with his father. If that's his wish, I won't stop him. Going with his father might also reflect his determination to attend the private school he was accepted into. 3 months later, everything was settled, and I moved to a cheaper apartment with my youngest, while my husband continued living with our eldest. I then started working more seriously, and although my earnings weren't high, they were enough to support my youngest and me.
I'll start working after graduating from high school. Just like Dad said, I can't do anything right. It'd be pointless to go to college.
Don't listen to what he says. You don't need to care about that.
But
It's okay. You'll see. You have your own talents, and there's nothing to worry about. Being abandoned by his father made him doubt his talents and lose confidence, but I knew he had hidden abilities. To support him, I wanted him to go to high school and develop his strengths, working hard to make him forget about his father. As my youngest neared high school graduation,
Mom, are you really going to support me?
of course, you have talents, so work hard to develop them. I'll take care of you to a certain extent and clean up any mess, so don't worry.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
After high school, my youngest started working as a freelance engineer. Ever since elementary school, he had a real knack for science and math. However, despite his exceptional skills in these areas, his overall grades were below average because he didn't score well in regular tests. My ex-husband never looked closely enough to see Mike's unique talents and looked down on him as a failure, but I knew better. After middle school, I enrolled him in a high school with a focus on engineering. There, his talents flourished, and he gained enough skills to be considered more than competent as an engineer before even graduating.
I just landed a really good project.
Really? That's awesome.
I was also asked by a previous client to work with them again. It's been super busy, but every day is fun.
I was really happy to see my younger son, Mike, so lively and thriving as an engineer. It was a matter of pride for me too. Eventually, Mike built connections with various companies, and soon, he had too much work to handle on his own, so he started delegating tasks to fellow engineers. That's when I started a company to take on IT projects, managing the business myself. Before I knew it, 5 years had flown by. One day,
Ma'am, there's a visitor here to see you. Did you have an appointment?
an appointment. No, I didn't. I hadn't scheduled any visits, so I was a bit put off. Who could it be? But then, the moment I heard the visitor's name, I felt a chill. Still, it wouldn't be right to just send him away, so I asked to have him shown to my office.
It's been a while. You're doing well, I see. Here, I brought some treats for you and your staff to enjoy.
To my surprise, it was my ex-husband, someone I neither wanted to see nor hear from. The shock of hearing his name and then seeing him in person was something else. I guess he had heard about Mike and me running a business and decided it was time to come back into our lives. Really, after all this time? What do you want? I have no business with you, and I didn't want you to come.
Don't be like that. We haven't seen each other in so long. Let's at least have a little catch-up. Are you running the business all by yourself, or?
He hadn't apologized for leaving us or for the divorce. It seemed like he thought enough time had passed that everything was okay now. But no apology for his past actions. It seemed he hadn't learned or reflected on anything after all this time. I was quite disappointed. If he was going to bring a peace offering, the least he could do was apologize for his actions. But perhaps he still thought he did nothing wrong. Either way, I was appalled. But as I sat there in silence, dumbfounded, the office door opened and someone walked in.
Long time no see, so now you're broke and dumped by your woman, clinging to straws by coming to mom.
Wait. What? Why are you here?
My ex-husband was bewildered to see our eldest son, John, whom he hadn't expected. About a year ago, John had contacted me. He said that he was now estranged from his father, who had no job, had been left by his second wife, and was drowning in debt.
I don't understand. Why?
I called him here, thought it was time for a long overdue reunion.
What?
And to think, I was the successful student you thought would become your ATM, but you were betrayed by me, lost your job because of an affair, got sued for alimony by your next wife, and now you're in debt. How does that feel?
What are you trying to do here?
Initially confused, my ex-husband's confusion quickly turned to anger. When John first reached out to me a year ago, I was shocked. I knew he had planned to cut ties with his father after graduating high school. This wasn't surprising to hear, as it was something I was told at the time of our divorce. But what shocked me was what happened after. So, you went to college but dropped out because he opposed what you wanted to do.
Yo, even after he paid for my private high school and college, Quitting was unthinkable to him. But I was drawn to the job I had been doing part-time, and the company offered me a full-time position. I didn't need college anymore.
All I did was for your own good. How is that wrong? After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me. You have no right to complain.
I don't want to hear anything from someone who abandoned their family. And if you're so into tough love, why did you only invest in me? Thought you only had one son, huh?
John's direct confrontation left my ex-husband speechless. It turned out, after investing all his hopes and resources into John, they ended up estranged. It was a failed investment with no returns, just like a bad gamble. A year ago, when John decided to leave his job and inform me about his father's situation, I was taken aback. Just when we were looking to expand our business, and given that my eldest son had experience in IT sales, I decided to have him work with us. And today, my ex-husband showed up.
So, what brings a man who easily betrays his family here now? Thinking you can get a piece of the success you once looked down on is quite audacious, isn't it?
Well,
no one's going to clean up after you. Someone who's only acted for their own benefit throughout their life has no right to expect help now. You've always been selfish, so it's about time you take responsibility for yourself. Being without money, family, and suffering and loneliness now is the result of your past actions, so you better accept it.
My ex-husband, faced with the hard truth from our son, clenched his fists and glared, but couldn't come up with any rebuttal. John probably knew he would be used for what he could offer in the future. Despite being children of the same father, the treatment John and his brother received was markedly different. John was praised for his achievements and good grades, while his brother was constantly put down. I believe no child dislikes being praised by their parent, but my ex-husband's arrival was merely to assess his children as tools. The lack of love was something the children understood better than anyone. My ex-husband hardly spent any money on the family, yet he didn't hesitate to send John to a private high school and pay for college. But all that was merely an investment for his future. He wanted to reap the benefits when my son started earning, not necessarily wishing for his son to have a good life. That's why, during our divorce, he chose to take only John, knowing fully well what he was doing. It seems John had already figured this out by the time of our divorce and decided to use his father to his advantage.
You might think you're heading for a hellish life, but that's none of my concern. You're going to struggle, but good luck with that.
I didn't come here for you. Shut up, traitor.
Well, you came to see me, right? So, what do you want?
After everything, I've reflected on a lot. And you haven't remarried, right? You must be worried about your future. So I thought, maybe we could get back together.
Get back together. It's astounding how audacious that sounds. I wish he would stop joking around. I've been thinking, shouldn't an apology come first? The lack of an apology, coupled with the audacity to suggest getting back together just because I haven't remarried, as if doing me a favor, is infuriating. Who does he think he is? Becoming a company president must have made me look quite attractive to you, huh? But let me make it clear, I have no intention of getting back with someone who betrayed us. Don't get it twisted. I want nothing to do with you for the rest of my life. No matter what, I have no plans to involve myself with such a person. Don't be mistaken. I can live perfectly fine without him, and there's no need for me to show him any pity. I can trust you as a person, and once someone betrays me, that's it. It's your life, so take care of it yourself.
You don't have to be so harsh. We were married for over 10 years. Have you forgotten that?
After you destroyed a relationship of over 10 years with your selfishness, there's no going back. You chose to leave us. So if you have regrets, blame your past foolish decisions. With that, I called security. My ex-husband kept begging until the very end, but eventually, he was escorted out by security. I didn't let my younger son meet him due to the trauma, but when I told him about the visit, he laughed. It must have been satisfying to get even with someone who had looked down on him. While I handle the business side of things, it's my younger son who scouts and trains talented engineers. And my eldest son secures big contracts one after another. Now we've grown into a large company with over 1,000 employees, managing the business as a family. As for my ex-husband, he was kicked out of his apartment afterward, disdained by his parents, and now lives a day-to-day life through odd jobs. No one's willing to help someone like him, and he'll continue to struggle, but it's entirely his own doing. He can spend the rest of his life regretting his actions. I plan to keep valuing my family and living our best lives, and protecting the company my sons and I have grown together, and striving every day